Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another installment of our Ig Nobel talk series. Here at the American University of Beirut, AUB, we take a great pride in striking curiosity in the young minds. On March 4th, 2019, we launched the 8th initiative of our Transformative Education Thread Drive at AUB, in which we host Ig Nobel Prize winners for public talks. One of the core aims of our thread is to spark potential in younger minds. The Ig Nobel Prize, founded by Dr. Mark Abrahams, is bestowed every year to 10 individuals who make people laugh and then think. Nobel Prize winners confer the awards to the winners in Sanders Theater at Harvard University to celebrate the unusual, honor the imaginative. I'm very delighted to host Professor Mariska Kret from Leiden University for the 2024 Ig Nobel talk at AUB. Professor Kret received the 2022 Ig Nobel Prize in Medicine for her paper published in the prestigious Nature Human Behavior entitled Physiological Synchrony is Associated with Attraction in a Blind Date Setting. Professor Kret's groundbreaking research has not only pushed the boundaries of our understanding, but has also tickled our intellectual curiosity. As we gather here today, we embark on a journey into the realm of human social dynamics, an arena where connections are forged and attractions kindled. Humans, by nature, are social beings, and our well-being is tied to our ability to attract and connect with one another, often through those fleeting yet impactful encounters. Mysteriously, it's not just our physical features that play a role in this intricate dance of attraction. It is a choreography of movements, physical reactions, and subtle expressions that can wield significant influence. Tonight, our esteemed speaker will explore her groundbreaking research conducted outside the confines of a sterile laboratory. Participants engaged in real-life dating interactions, and their experiences were captured through a remarkable array of technology. So fasten your intellectual seatbelts, for we are about to embark on a journey of discovery through the realms of mimicry and synchrony in human and great ape emotions. It is truly my distinct pleasure to welcome you, Professor Kret, to the stage as we unravel the secrets of our hearts and minds in the pursuit of understanding the enigmatic world of emotions and synchrony. Today, you will laugh, you will learn, and you will question multiple things which surround you. Without further ado, Professor Kret, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much for a great introduction and for inviting and especially for being here in such a difficult time for you. It is a great honor to give this talk. Today I would like to talk about my Ig Nobel Prize research and also the broader context around that particular study. So why emotional expressions? So Nico Tinbergen, he was an ecologist and also a Nobel Prize winner, stated that every type of behavior, in order to fully understand it, should best be studied from 4 different complementary angles. And that is to study the function, why we have it in the here and now, the mechanism, how it works in the brain and in the body, how it develops over our lifetime, and also how it evolved by taking a cross-species perspective. So in the emotion literature, and there's quite a bunch of it, there's a lot of research on emotions, but a very common assumption that's being made is that emotional expressions are reflections of our feelings. However, in real life, what we encounter is a complex mixture between what I call signals and cues. And signals, well, an example of that is a smile. We smile not only when we are happy, and this is the label that we often are asked to assign in psychology experiments, but we also smile when encountering somebody on the hallway, when we feel nervous, when we are contempted by someone, or we can even smile in aggression. We put on a smile on our face for communicative purposes because we want to signal something to another individual. And then on the whole other side, there's also what I call emotional expressions, but they're more emotional cues. We do not have control over them, but they are reflective of our inner emotional worlds. And one example is pupil size. As you all know, our pupils dilate in the dark, but also when we get aroused, when we're being emotional, or when we see something or someone who's interesting. And in the real world, emotions are dynamic, occur in interaction. We get influenced by the emotional expressions of other individuals, interaction partners, or in a group. And also the whole context plays a role in how we express and how we interpret emotional expressions. So real world emotional expressions are much more complex than the way they are typically studied. And by the way, I forgot to tell you that if you have a question, don't feel so inhibited to just ask it. I don't see you, but I'm sure there is a way to communicate here. So feel free to ask questions anytime, and otherwise there will be time at the end. In collaboration with my PhD students and two biologists, Lisbeth Sterk and Zenna Clay, I wrote a review paper. And in the review paper, what we really wanted to know is how do people and great apes express themselves when really being emotional and really experiencing an emotion. Well, what we found, first of all, is that very little is known about how humans really express emotions, because 99% of the work is based on acted expressions of actors who are trying to look angry, happy, fearful, sad, disgusted, and the sixth one, so the 6 basic emotions. But very little is known about how people really look like when they are in a real emotional situations. We also found that in apes and in humans, some emotional expressions can to some extent be controlled or regulated voluntarily. And this suggests the modulation by cognitive processes. So this is not a unique human feature. Also, apes can control their emotional expressions and do take into account the presence of conspecifics. And I will talk about this more at the end of my presentation. And even non-intentional expressions, I just mentioned pupil dilation, can inform others and also influence behavior. A final conclusion, while showing deep evolutionary homologies across closely related species such as chimps and humans, emotional expressions also show relevant species variation. So how to fill these knowledge gaps? What should we do? Well, what we are trying in my lab is to work towards the study of more genuine expressions. And for that purpose, we are now in the process of creating a genuine expression database, also for other researchers to use, and to observe emotions as they occur in natural situations. Also, we study children because they are less inhibited, I would say, to express their emotions and are more free in their expression. Also, we study audience effects. So do people, and also apes, express themselves differently if they know that somebody else is watching them? What is the role of consciousness in the expression of emotions? And also we study neural mechanisms in humans, not in apes, because that's forbidden and not what I want. But the study of neural processes in humans also gives us some insight into the underlying mechanisms, obviously. And then we tend to take a multi-method approach. So using eye tracking, psychophysiological measures, and combining them as best as we can, because every method has its limitations. But by combining different methods, we can get the puzzle as complete as possible. And also trying to link expressions to behavior in order to get more insight in the function of the expressions, right? What are they good for? How do they influence the course of social interactions? And finally, to get insight in the evolutionary similarities and differences, we take cross-species comparisons. And well, although I am human and as a researcher, I have to put off my human glasses as much as I can when observing other species, I will always have this human bias, but my ambition is to move away at least as much of this as I can. All right, so with that in mind, the first part of my talk will be about how we regulate our emotional expressions. And I'd like to start by sharing with you a recent experiment. It's not published yet, so it's fresh data. And this is work by my PhD student Chris Riddle and former postdoc Milica Nikolic. In this study, 3 groups of people were compared. So young children, somewhat older children, and an adult group. And we induced 2 types of emotions in them, pride and embarrassment. And for now, I'm just gonna focus on the embarrassment induction. So in order to induce embarrassment, we asked people to first sing a song, and then that song was recorded. And then we asked them to watch back this video, either alone or with somebody else sitting next to them. And at the same time, we took measures of facial expressions, physiological arousal, and also we asked people how they felt. So this is an example of the setup: a young child standing there singing the song, or an adult singing the song, getting a recording, and then watching back the video, either alone or with an audience there. So what we found was that participants experienced more embarrassment and also blushed more in the presence of others compared to when they were alone. And this was not reflected in their facial expressions. And also, interestingly, this was completely independent of age. So even very young children were already processing the presence of others, and were already influenced differently by the presence of others. Okay, so it's interesting, I think, that the strongest audience effect is in this blush that we have no control over, or very little at least. Okay, a second developmental project that I want to talk about concerns the emotion of laughter. And humans, they start to laugh when they are about 4 months of age, and this usually starts in the context of play, for example, the game peekaboo or tickling. And the way humans laugh is that they inhale, and then in bursts of sound, they exhale, ha, 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 and then they produce that sound. So to demonstrate that, I have a very nice video. I hope that works. That's a shame. Well, okay, it's a quite hilarious video, but I can share the link later. In this video, it becomes very clear that she inhales and then produces the sound on the exhale. And supposedly this was a very human way of laughter. And well, this video then probably doesn't work either, unfortunately. Oh, it does. Okay, let me check this one. Okay.
You probably need to unmute.
At least you see what's happening. In the next video, yeah, it's a shame that the sound doesn't work, but you see a laughing bonobo, and what you can hear, if the sound works, if the sound can work, is that the bonobo produces a sound during inhalation and exhalation. So I'm trying to mimic it. Bear with me. It sounds like like that. And well, a famous Dutch primatologist was talking about this. He's really an expert in the study of smiles and laughter. His name is Jan van Hoof. And he said, well, humans have this very unique way of laughing, producing the sound only during exhalation, breathing out. And apes have a different way of laughter. And I was watching that talk and I thought, well, actually, my baby just laughs like an ape. Is this normal? I came to realize that that at least my children, my very young children, were laughing like apes. And then I had a student, and we decided to turn this into a study. And we contacted Disa Sauter. She's a vocalization expert. And we collected hundreds of audio files from the internet from 3 to 18, sorry, typo, 1.5-year-old infants. And we asked people, and these people were either just general public or phoneticians, whether they thought that the laugh that they were hearing is produced during inhalation or during exhalation. And also we asked people whether the laughter was pleasant to listen to and whether it's contagious. I'm not sure if this is working. Can you hear this or not?
We can't hear it. Apparently, you need to share the sound system. Hani, can you direct her how to do that right now? Is she able to do it right now?
Yeah, if it takes too much time, then
yes.
No, if
she here able, but she need to reshare from beginning.
no, it's okay.
No, let's move on then.
Let's move on. It was a cute baby laughter sound. Anyway, what we found was that the proportion of laughter similar to that of adult humans. And this is likely through a combination of social learning, but also probably the development of the vocal production system, as this is also the time that those very young infants start babbling and talking eventually. All right, so now I would like to move on to cross-species comparisons. So in this phylogenetic tree, you can see the different great ape species that are still living today. So you can see humans and bonobos and chimpanzees. They shared an ancestor that lived 6 million years ago. And then 2 million years ago, there was a split in the ancestors of bonobos and chimpanzees. Actually, the bonobos split off. They came to live in an environment apart from the chimpanzees, and they evolved in a different species. And gorillas and orangutans are a bit further apart from humans, and Well, what people always find surprising is that when I tell them that actually humans and chimpanzees are phylogenetically speaking more similar and more closely related than, for example, a chimpanzee and a gorilla. It's interesting, I think, to make comparisons between these different species, because it can show us, because then it can only show us what behaviors are unique, what behaviors are similar across species, and what behaviors are different. And also it can give us some insight into why those differences exist. Where do they come from? Can we explain them by taking an evolutionary perspective? And I do get back to that later as well. All right, so for a very long time, it was thought that humans were able to control their emotions, while all other animals have very little voluntary control over their emotions. Well, now evidence is accumulating that also other animals, I already mentioned it at the beginning, at least the great apes, they do definitely have some control over their emotions. In this, yeah, so actually, here I would like to show this video. Here, this is a bonobo video. Here you can see this victim, and he has been attacked by another bonobo. And you can't hear it, but he's screaming, he's making a very tantrum, he's even making a handstand. And then finally, another individual comes and comforts him, and he calms down. This is a video made by my colleague, Zenna Clay, and she has demonstrated that bonobos are much more expressive when they know that others are looking at them. So they really can exaggerate their expressions. Well, together with her and our two postdocs, we decided to turn this into a study, into an experiment. So we had 10 bonobo participants, and we had two experimental conditions. One low audience condition, so they were then situated in a small group of bonobos, and a high audience condition. And they were listening to sounds of either distress, or high distress, or low distress, let's say. And what we did was we measured with a thermal camera the nasal temperature change. And I don't know if you know of this method, but it can be indicative for arousal. So it's a non-invasive measure of arousal. The animal doesn't notice that we are taking this measurement, so you don't have to put electrodes on them or anything that could bother them. So we had this physiological measure, and we also coded for emotional expressions, facial expressions, body language, that kind of thing. And also we wanted to study if there is a link between arousal and the overt expression of emotionality. So what we found, first of all, was that there was no impact of nasal temperature changes, so physiological arousal, on signal presence. So the bonobos expressed themselves independent of how aroused they felt. And also, what we found was that they used more gestures, more expressions when the audience was larger. So when they knew that more other bonobos would see it, they were more expressive. So this shows that also bonobos take into account the presence of others in how they express themselves. All right, so inhibiting, exaggerating, modifying emotions, it's not uniquely human. Embarrassment is something that humans want to inhibit in the presence of others, but they do blush. They cannot control that. So still, that is a signal to others that they feel that way. Distress, on the other hand, is something that bonobos want to share, and they do get help. So it's beneficial to them. All right, it's beneficial to them. this already links to the function of expressions. We express ourselves because we are a social species, because it has benefits for us. So why do we then mimic emotional expressions? Well, there's a large literature on the mimicry of expressions. And in the literature, there's a focus on the mimicry of positive expressions. So there's a lot of studies that find that when people mimic themselves, mimic others, that they bond with the other person better, trust the other person better, like the other person better, have a greater desire for future interaction, etc. That's all true. But I would say that that's not the function of mimicry, it's a result of it. So let me explain. First of all, the mimicry of negative expressions, it's not fundamentally different than the mimicry of positive, ambiguous, or autonomic expressions. And also mimicry is not always a social act. It just happens. Mimicry has also primary benefits for the mimicker. What I mean by that is that the expression of emotion have direct benefits for the expressor. So take, for example, the expression of disgust. When we express our disgust, we close our eyes, we close our nose, we stick out our tongue. And this is to protect the body for poisonous materials to enter our body, right? On the other hand, in the expression of fear, we open our eyes, we open our nostrils, this has been studied, and we actually really want to take in as much information as possible. And this has direct perceptual benefit for the person who puts his face in that position. Now, by mimicking other people, we get the same expression and we get the same benefits in this context where it's useful to have such an expression. So by mimicking, you literally become a bit more similar to the other person. And by increasing that similarity, you can better predict the other person, right? We are constantly trying to predict the world around us. That's what our predictive brain is doing. And in an interaction, by mimicking the other person, we can predict the other person better. This helps us to appraise the situation better. This helps us to predict the behavior of the other person better. And this is very nice because it smoothens the social interaction, right? If you are interacting with another person and you have no idea what that person is going to say, that's not a nice interaction. On the other hand, if you can understand the logic of the other person, if you can predict what the other person is going to say or do, this smoothens the social interaction. And therefore, it's not so surprising that this has benefits for the social bond. And keep this in mind when I'm going to talk about the Ig Nobel Prize blind date study. So I do get back to this, this model there. The mimicry of emotional expressions is not something that only humans do. Actually, there's a lot of different animal species that mimic expressions. And it has been studied in numerous species by now, and also in different primate species. And in the primatology literature, there's a lot of work been done on yawning and the contagiousness of yawning. So you all know that yawning can be very contagious, so I should be really careful not to yawn or to talk too much about yawning, because you will all get very bored. They start yawning. Yeah, so we all know that this is very, very contagious. But to date, we actually have no robust idea of the exact function of yawning, and let alone the contagiousness of yawning. And we also don't really know why and how it evolved. And then we know that yawning is contagious in numerous species. So even in budgies, so those are the very small parrots, yawning is contagious. So when one little parrot starts yawning, it's very likely that their group mates, that the whole flock starts yawning. And also in other social species like bonobos and chimpanzees, it has been demonstrated that yawning is very contagious. But then orangutans, and I forgot to mention this when I showed the phylogenetic tree, they're actually very interesting oddball in the great ape species because they live on their own. They're a relatively solitarily living species, in contrast to humans, bonobos, chimpanzees, and gorillas, who all live in social groups with slightly different social structures, but they all live in social groups, not orangutans. So the question that my team and I had was, do orangutans also mimic expressions? And do they start yawning when they see other orangutans yawn? So yeah, we did that in an experimental study, so showing videos on a computer screen. And also we observed yawning behavior just in the group. And then when that happened, when one individual started yawning, we looked around and coded whether other individuals were yawning. And we did find evidence that also this semi-solitarily living species yawns when he sees his group mates yawn. So this also supports the notion that mimicry is not always a social act and probably has primarily benefits for the mimicker. I don't have time to really go into the function of yawning, but there is a clear benefit of yawning. Very boldly stated, by yawning you cool down your brain, literally also, and it increases your attention. So it has a direct function, and therefore it is beneficial to mimic that expression. But in orangutans, we did not really see that it had positive consequences for the bond between individuals. All right. Here is another project by my PhD student, Tonko Zijlstra, who is looking into the mimicry of laughter. And here we were showing videos of laughter or control videos on the computer screen. And you can see here this gorilla paying attention to the computer screen. And here we did the same with orangutans. Also looking at the different control videos and then videos of play. Oh, okay. So this is yeah, and we did the same in people. What we found in people, and we still have to analyze the data of the great apes, but what we do see in people is that when you play videos of laughter and you don't ask participants to pay attention to this, the videos were actually played in the waiting room, then even then, yeah, laughter is very contagious in people. Okay, so well, right now we are communicating via a television screen, right? And this is something that we have become more familiar with during COVID time. And my PhD student and I, Fabiola Diana, we wanted to compare 3 different types of situations. 1, the mimicry of emotional expressions during normal face-to-face interactions. 2, the mimicry of interactions, of emotions during video call interaction. And 3, the mimicry of emotional expressions when watching a video. So what we did, we had one Confederate, and his Confederate wore headphones and was at certain times instructed to either yawn, scratch, bite his lips, or touch the face. And this, we picked these expressions because they're not very overt, not very explicit. They happen during interactions, but especially the yawning and the scratching, they are also considered emotional behaviors in the primatology literature. They are more frequent in anxious or high arousal situations. And sorry, after those brief interactions, we asked participants and also confederates to play a trust game. So to invest money in the other individual, knowing that this investment could be tripled and that they could actually earn money by trusting the other, but they could also lose it. Okay, so here a visualization of the setup. We had this face-to-face interaction where the participant and the confederate were facing each other, sitting opposite each other at the table. In the second situation, it's exactly the same table. People are again sitting in front of each other, but this time they see each other live via the computer screen. So like in a Zoom call, for example. And in the third condition, participants were sitting in this second configuration, but on the computer screen, the participants saw the confederate interacting during the previous interaction with the previous participant. It's important to note that there was no talking, so they were just looking at each other. And we checked whether participants were aware that they were watching at the person who was present there in the here and now or not, and people didn't realize that they were watching a video. They really thought that they were watching the other individual that was in the room. Okay. What we found first of all was that there was most mimicry during the live interactions, and it didn't matter whether this interaction happens during the video call or in the normal interaction without the screen. However, when watching a video, people were much less mimicking the expressions that they saw. So you can imagine that it really is even in the case that participants were interacting with a confederate, which they obviously didn't know, even then it's an interaction. So there's two people that influence each other. And also what's interesting was that especially the scratch condition was very contagious. So scratching, yawning, face touching, and lip biting, we saw mimicry in all the conditions, but especially the scratch, the itch, was very contagious. Okay, then what we found was that people trusted the confederate mostly in the live interactions, either directly face-to-face or via a video screen. And there was much less trust in the blue condition when participants were just watching a video. And interestingly here, what we found was a negative relationship between mimicry and trust. So here, the more people mimicked, the less they trusted others. And this is in contrast with the large literature that usually finds that mimicry boosts trust. However, remember that the types of emotional expressions here consider negative expressions, yawning, scratching. In an interaction, this is usually interpreted as a sign of, okay, you know, we are done with communicating, where this interaction should stop. It's time to move on and do something else. So also this study supports the model that I showed you earlier, that by mimicking, it helps us to predict the behavior of the other individual. We recognize that the other is not interested in continuing the interaction with us, and therefore it has negative consequences on the interaction and on how the other is being perceived. All right, and then the blind date experiments. So in this study by my my former PhD student, Eliška Prochaskova, you can see a picture of her at the bottom, we were interested in investigating whether we could quantify the click that you have sometimes with someone. It's not explicable. And there's a lot of anecdotes about people having a click with someone and not having a click with another person. But is this click measurable if we study the physiology? What we did here was we went to a festival, a music festival in the Netherlands, and we had this dating cabin. And we had a lot of young people, boys and girls, line up for the study. We put heart sensors on them, skin conductance electrodes to measure sympathetic arousal. We coded facial expressions, eye contact, body language. So really a mountain of data was being collected. And when they entered the dating cabin, they were sitting opposite each other, but they could not see each other because there was a curtain in between them. And then at the bottom of the screen, you can see the timeline. You can see that for 3 seconds, the curtain went up and immediately down. And after that, participants were asked to rate the other person on attractiveness, on how they were feeling, and some other questions as well. And then subsequently, there were 2 more interaction moments. One where they could freely talk with each other as they wished, and another interaction moment where they could just watch each other in the eyes, make eye contact. So that was also quite hilarious for us experimenters to see, because we could see exactly what they were looking at. The 2 participants were wearing eye tracking glasses. And here is an example of the date. Here you see the guy through the little camera on the glasses of the girl. And here you can see the girl through the camera of the guy. And here is just as an illustration some of the behaviors that we measured: heart rate, skin conductance, touching the face, what is this? Shaking the head, smiling, laughing. We had a lot more, but just for illustration. The funny thing about this particular date was that at first the boy and the girl, they were very much in sync on all different levels. But then she finds out that he is 31 years old, and in her perception, that's like super, super old. And from that moment on, she's not interested anymore. So from that moment on, they're really out of sync. And also, this date doesn't work. It doesn't result in an exchange of phone numbers. This is anecdotal, but the data shows a very similar pattern. So here what you can see is a correlation matrix of the behaviors that we measured. And you can see that there was mimicry and synchrony on all the different levels that we measured. And at the bottom, you can read skin conductance level and heart rate. So even at the physiological level, people synchronized, people aligned. And of course, some couples more than others. The only thing that really predicted dating success was the physiological alignment, not the mimicry of facial expressions, not the mimicry of body language or other types of expressions. No, really the synchronization of physiological states is what people what made people click, literally. And you can imagine that this date for most people is very scary, right? You get super nervous, but you get super nervous together, and then you become more calm together, and you become aligned on this level. And this is what is creating a bond. Okay, and for this, we indeed won the Ig Nobel Prize. So we're really happy with that, because yes, it's a fun study. It was done at Lowlands, and yeah, we show that the alignment of heart rate can predict whether people go on another date or not. This is quite funny, because you would think that humans are more rational than that, but actually, are humans rational? People tend to think of themselves as rational beings, but are we rational? Are we really more rational than chimpanzees or bonobos? What other important decisions are driven by our intuition, by our emotions? So we are studying this a lot more. And one experiment building on this blind date experiment is a study which is in fact very similar, but we did it in the lab under more controlled conditions. And we also had, apart from a face-to-face condition, we also had a face-blocked condition. And here we didn't look at dating success, but we let participants play a prisoner's dilemma game. So we were measuring cooperation. What we found first is that people were slightly better at cooperating when they could see each other as compared to when they could not see each other. Well, this is not very new. It has been demonstrated in the literature before. But yeah, that's what we also found. We also found that physiological synchrony was stronger when people could see each other as compared to when they could not see each other. And this was the case for heart rate, but also for skin conductance level. So also for sympathetic arousal. So something in the face probably helps people to align. And then, most interestingly, we can also see a link with behavior. So I mentioned that well, I would like to understand the function of emotions and the function of mimicry more. So we should, in research, also pay attention to linking expressions more to actual behavioral outcomes. And here we very nicely demonstrate that the more aligned people are on the physiological level, so the more you can see the blue line going up, the better they are at cooperating. And this is only when they could actually see each other, and it didn't work when they could not see each other. All right. So also our closest living relatives, chimpanzees and bonobos, are capable of cooperating, right? They function in a group. Cooperation is beneficial for them too. And here, my postdoc, Jena Kim, and Rafaela Heesen, postdoc of Zena Clay, we designed together a cooperation box where two individuals had to work together in order to get a food reward. And this experiment is based on a classical study. And in the classical study, there is a wooden bar and two individuals, and there's a rope around the bar. And two individuals have to pull the rope together in order to get the food reward that is placed on this bar. And if only one individual pulls the rope, he just gets the rope and the bar doesn't get any nearer to them. So this cooperation box that Jena and Rafa designed was based on that classical study. But in our case, the individuals were not sitting next to each other, but were sitting in front of each other because we were interested in the emotional expressions, the exchange of emotional expressions, and the effect thereof on cooperative success. So here I'm showing you a video. You can see that two individuals are pulling the rope, this thing is mounted and they can have access to a food reward. Let me play it again. Okay, so this is a successful trial. They both managed to get the food reward because they cooperated. And this is an example where two individuals are cooperating, but another individual steals the rewards. And this is paired with emotional expressions. So you can see the bared teeth display. It's an expression of distress. We don't have the results of this study yet completely. But what I can already share you is very preliminary results showing that there's more expressions when individuals fail to cooperate. So when they fail to cooperate in the social condition as compared to when they succeed to cooperate. All right, and this brings me to the end of my talk. So emotional expressions, they are much more complex than typically studied in the psychological literature. Emotional expressions are, genuine, they are not acted, they are mixed, ambiguous. A facial expression is always paired with some body language, never in isolation. There's those common primate expressions like yawning and scratching that are not studied a lot in the psychological literature and that deserve definitely a lot more attention. And there's those expressions of arousal reflected in pupil dilation or a blush on the face that are more important than we may think. Emotional expressions may or may not have a communicative function and signaled on purpose, such as, for example, the smile, in contrast to pupil dilation. But regardless, often even those emotion cues, even the very subtle ones, play an important role in social decisions. They help us to make decisions to trust other persons or to cooperate or to go on a date, for example. Like people, apes also express and mimic emotions and synchronize physiological states. And this suggests that their common ancestor shared those skills. All right. And with that, I would like to thank my fantastic team members and my collaborators. And I would like to thank the funding agencies. I would like to thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this amazing, really, really amazing and informative lecture. I know that everybody has greatly enjoyed it. I know also that you have to run to pick up your child from
from the daycare.
From the daycare. So how much time do we have? We have a couple of questions. You tell me how much time, and we stick.
I can take a couple of questions. If I leave in 10-15 minutes, then I'm still on time.
We will stick to 10 minutes. I'm not gonna stay more than 10 minutes. So this question is coming from Bassem Al-Harfani. He's a medical lab student here at AUB. His question is, do divorced people lose their physiological synchrony after they get separated, or does it change their relationship from promoting attractiveness to reinforcing separation?
Oh, this is a very, very interesting question. Also because in a lot of the studies, we don't know the order of the effects, right? What we see is correlations. So we see that oftentimes mimicry and the positive effects on the bond, for example. So yes, there is definitely a lot of research showing that the mimicry between closely bonded people works better. And there's literature showing that in romantic couples, So, for example, there's work that shows that people who are in a good relationship, who have a lot of marital satisfaction, are also mimicking each other more and synchronizing heart rates more. And also work on mothers and infants and linking synchrony to the bond between the mother and the infant. I don't think, I'm not aware of work specifically studying divorced people. I don't think anyone has done that, but speculating on it, I do think that that the synchrony gets disrupted. And actually, this is very anecdotal, but that's also what we saw in this video, right? Because at first, the girl and this boy were very much in sync, and then she finds out that he's extremely old, 31, oh my God, and she is not interested anymore, and they're physiologically out of sync. And I can imagine that this also works in a divorce. There are so many things happening, so many negative things that disrupt this natural mimicry process, I would say. But it would be very interesting to study, and also very important to study the order of effects in more detail. And actually, we are also doing that. I didn't show it, but with virtual reality, we are running some studies where we have programmed avatars that, well, first of all, they show different expressions. So, for example, the smile, but also pupil dilation and blush. And we find that people mimic those expressions. But then in follow-up work, we also program the avatar to real-time mimic the participants. So, for example, we measure the pupil dilation in the participant, and then real-time we make the avatar either mimic or not. And then we hope that we can pull apart the order of effects more. So is it that mimicry is making people bond more, or is it that closely bonded people mimic more? So that is, I think it's both ways, but it's important to understand that better.
Well, thank you so much. I think this is a very good new research topic, and probably a research project that you could pursue, and probably recently divorced people, their behavior would be completely different from people who have been divorced for a while. Well, he's giving you some research ideas.
Definitely.
Another question, this is from Ahmed Farhat. That's a little naughty question. Can a person synchronize physiologically with more than one partner?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we are definitely not a super monogamous species. Let's be honest. That's not the case. That's not who we are. And it's a very natural phenomenon to mimic emotional expressions and to synchronize on the physiological level, and not only in a romantic context, but, well, as I just mentioned, also in the bond with your child, for example. So we're constantly synchronizing. We're sometimes more than other times, and with some people more than with other people. So it's definitely possible.
Another question, this is coming from Petra Abu Dargham, who is majoring in environmental health. Her question is, did you ever think you would end up winning an Ig Nobel Prize for your work? And what did this accolade mean to you?
No, I had no idea. It was so funny because I received a very strange email from an American lady. It was very short, but it said something like, I have something important to tell you, please call me. And I would never do that because, sometimes, you get those spam messages. But I decided to call. I don't know why. I followed my intuition, maybe. I called, And then she said, yeah, I have some really exciting news for you. Have you heard about the Ig Nobel Prize? Well, I know what it is. And she said, yeah, we have selected your paper for this prize, and would you like to accept it? And yeah, I'm very much in favor of this prize. I think it's very important. There's nothing wrong by first laughing about scientific work, especially not if it makes you think later on. So I was really happy. And then I called up Eliska, so she's my PhD student, and she said, what? The Ig Nobel Prize? People are laughing up. This is my PhD work. This is the cherry on top of my hard work. She was actually a bit angry and offended by it, but I made her calm down, and actually she's also now really happy about it. It received a lot of attention in the media, and actually in April we're gonna go to Denmark to give some presentations together this work. So yeah, I'd never expected it, but I'm really happy with it.
To stay with my promise, the last question. We have many questions, but I'm going to ask you only one more question because of your time. This question is coming from Yara Figali. She is biology major student here at AUB. And her question is, what experience really shaped your outlook in life and research, and how?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really nice question, actually, and an important question. And I have an immediate answer to it too. I had always been interested in human evolution, and not just from a scientific point of view. Actually, as a young girl, I think I was 14 or 15 years old, I read a novel. I don't know the English title. I actually have it here, I think. Let me check. Oh, this is one of them. It's written by Jane Auel, and there are six of them. And it's about a young girl, a Homo sapiens girl, and she loses her whole family in an earthquake. And then Neanderthals, they find her, and they take her to a group and they raise her. And it's a novel. It's very romantic, and the main person is also a young girl. I was a young girl, and I was so amazed by extinct people, and also that those people could live together. And this really, it planted a seed, and it was always there, that seed. But it really came into expression when at the end of my PhD, I attended a summer school, the biology of social cognition. And there, Professor Tetsuro Matsuzawa, a famous Japanese primatologist, spoke about his work on the evolution of cognition by making a comparison between humans and chimpanzees. And I had been studying emotional expressions in people, and I thought, oh wow, I can study the evolution of emotion by comparing people and chimpanzees. And I spoke more with Matsuzawa about the possibility, and I wrote a grant proposal, and before I knew it, I was in Japan working with chimpanzees. And that was really a turning point in my career. I'd never predicted that I would start working with other primates than only humans, but it really opened my eyes, and it really also shows me that we are just social animals, and we are not as rational as we think, and we can learn a lot by looking at other animal species.
Professor Kret, I'm really very happy that we had the chance to host you today. It was such a great honor, and thank you so much. I tried, if you remember, to fly you in so that you give this talk in person, but you had the newborn and you're not able to leave. But we would love to host you here in person in our beautiful campus, the American University of Beirut. Perhaps in a couple of years when your child can be left for a couple of days.
That would be lovely.
I don't know if you have been here in Lebanon before, but
No, never.
let's consider this an open invitation.
Thank you.
Trust me, you will be hearing from me that I would love to host you here in person and give another public talk about your research, amazing research that I'm sure it has inspired so many of the young minds who are present right now. I want to thank you again for your time and for your patience. We had to reschedule this talk 3 times because of the circumstances, and I very much appreciate how understanding you were.
No,
and,
not at
you
all.
accommodated us despite everything. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks for inviting, and yeah, it was a pleasure to be here. And thanks for the really nice questions. Thank you.
There are many more. We will keep them for the time you are here in person.
Thank you.
You have a great day, and thank you everybody for being with us. And until our next event, so long. You have a great night. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.